Hi guys, Jasmo here. In the last video, which was a guide for the build I'm playing, some people were leaving very interesting comments about how this build is impossible to play without RMT, which is like real money trading, and that this build is too expensive and that nobody could play this build because it just costs way too much money. So I thought I'll make a video to help you guys out how to make a little bit more currency. As you can see here, I have over 1000 pure chaos and then some exalts and then a bunch of many exalts of currency more here. And then if I bothered to sell my all of the items and the maps that I am not using, then that would be a couple more thousand chaos at least. And of course I'm wearing very expensive set of gear and gems, like so many 20 quality level 21 gems and so on. So I've managed to make a decent amount of currency to have like a decent idea on how to do it, at least this league, right? So I'm gonna help you guys out and answer some common questions first. I guess like what people wonder is like very common question is, do you do chaos recipe? Should you do chaos recipe? When should you do chaos recipe, right? So I got all this chaos, never doing chaos recipe. I never do chaos recipe except for the very beginning of the league. Basically, I think chaos recipe is very inefficient if you have a decent build, but it can be okay if you have a really slow build, because initially you need, of course, to buy some items, or you need to use the chaos for something, and in order to progress your character, you can do the chaos recipe for the beginning stages to just make like, I don't know, like 20 chaos and just buy some items that will boost your build, and then you should be efficient enough so that the chaos recipe will just not be good enough, right? So I would use the loot filter that lets you do chaos recipe in the beginning of the league, but then once you make your build, like you get one or two decent items to lift your build from the ground, then I would stop making chaos recipe. I think it's very inefficient. In fact, I have a very strict filter right now, and I think it's the way to go. So don't do chaos recipe unless your build is really slow and really sucks and you really need that few chaos as soon as possible. And you'll notice a theme in this video that I'm gonna be telling you to invest in your character. Like whatever you do, just invest in your character and try to scale it up. So first thing, you can do chaos recipe to invest in your character until it's better. Then what content do you do, right? Of course I do maps, and my Atlas strategy is to first I did everything, right? So I completed everything I possibly could, and I was progressing the Zana. I was shaping maps like around this corner because there are very good maps. Like I really like Iceberg, so I shaped that. Ramparts is decent. I shaped Atoll because it's like I like easy maps to run, right? City Square, Crater. I love Crater. Crater is a very good map, not just easy to run, but also a very good map. Pit is a very good map. Spider Forest is nice as well. Waterways, decent map to shape as well, right? So in this corner I would usually shape maps, and at least this league, right? And then I did all of the Guardians, Shaper, I did Red Elder, Uber Elder, right? And after I completed Uber Elder, then I didn't need the Guardians anymore. So I used my Elder Orb on Desert Springs because that's a very easy map with a lot of monsters, a lot of map drops. It's a very good map to Elder, and it also has a couple of yellow, like 3 yellow maps that you can use yellow sextants on, so it's easy to sextant it up. And then I removed the Guardians, the T16s, from my Atlas, and you can Google how to do that. It's very easy on PoE wiki. You just make the not unshaped orb, but the orb of something, like you basically uncomplete these maps, and that's the only T16. So that helps with everything because T16s drops from so many places. Whenever I run like for example to run Betrayal or Nico missions, I run T15s. That's the only reason I would run T15, like only to run Nico missions or Betrayal, because I'm farming those two things. Sometimes T16 like Forge of the Phoenix will drop. I just sell that. That's like 20 chaos, between 15 to 20 chaos, no problem every time that drops, right? And other than that, you're gonna be dropping only Desert Spring or whatever else you choose to shape, but I recommend Desert Spring. It's a very safe bet to do that, right? So that's my Atlas strategy, and I use 4 sextants, right? How I run my maps, I just quality the map up always. use 4 chisels before you change the type from normal to rare, right? Then I alk it up. I don't really care what mods there are, as long as there's no elemental reflect. That's the only mod I don't run. So if it's elemental reflect, I just reroll with like scour, alk, or chaos until it's not reflect. Like I'm talking like average map, right? So I just alk it. After it's quality up, I have 4 sextants, and if I have fragments, like if I have these fragments, right, the regular sacrifice at Siri fragments, I just throw a fragment in. And in terms of the mods, I should make a guide for this as well. But if I'm trying to save money, Bloodlines is nice, because especially if you have like maps that have more magic monsters or sextants that have more like 20% bigger magic monster packs and so on, Bloodlines are good. If you're gonna have tons of additional monsters in the map, Beyond is good. And Breach is also good in terms of like just experience and just mob density, right? So those 3 are mostly what I run. If you happen to find a sextant, like you drop a sextant on your map, I don't know if I have one here. Nemesis monsters drop 3 additional currency items, the 3rd sextant here. If you have that sextant, then you can also run Nemesis, for example, right? And like maps that have additional rare monsters, because usually like I sold so many of them. That's how I made like maybe 400 chaos from selling my T16s, because I'm sustaining them so easily, right? I just need to have like this many maps and I will grow my pool like indefinitely from that, right? You just need a couple of these like few of these T16s and you'll grow no problem. So I just whenever I have a bunch of them, I put them to the right side, I roll them all, and I search for like reflect and stuff like that. If it's reflect, I reroll, and then I just put a bunch of them into my inventory and I run them, right? And whenever I have new maps, I just drop them here, right? So, and if I sold all of these maps, that's so much currency, right? So that's one thing I want to tell you. You don't need to rely on random lucky drops. You don't need to get like, oh, I found a bunch of like, actually a lot of exalts this league, right? But it all went into my gear instantly. Whenever I find money, I put it into my gear. Right now, I like kind of holding on for like a big weapon. That's why I'm saving some money, right? Like I'm gonna need like 12 exalts on it or something. But usually you can get a very constant stream of money from selling maps, right? Like these maps I sold them, they are like, okay, 17 chaos, something like that. 17 chaos for a decent elder map, right? So 17 chaos, and I sold like 20 of them to one guy, for example, right? Like and we made a deal, okay, like let's do discount, let's do like 300 chaos for those 20, right? And you sell a bunch of T15s as well, very easy, right? Because T15s, for like red maps drop constantly from this. So my advice would be to make sure you're progressing your character, make sure you're improving your character and investing in your character. Make sure you're following some kind of a decent build if you want to make a lot of money. If you want to have fun and play whatever you want, of course, play whatever you want, but you're not going to make as much money if you're not playing a faster build, right? So that's the first piece of content I do, maps, and that's how I roll them in general, right? Sometimes if I have a Nico mission, then of course I like corrupt to 120 quantity, and I put fragments and I run just with the quantity, right, to have maximum sulfite, whatever, right? Things like that. But in general, that's how I run maps. Then fragments, right? We also have the Nexus. I run Nexus currently. Okay, a boss spawned. What is it? Augmented, of course. For like a week, I'm trying to spawn Cortex, and of course it's not spawning. And immediately now it's the time for me to run Nexus, right? So I would run Nexus now. I would just connect to as many reward nodes and modifiers as I can, trying to get to the boss as well, and then despawn the boss if it's like super crazy mods. If it's easy to do, then I just do the boss. And then repeat, right? I use all of these memories, and all of my memories, I have a rule of, because I'm trying to spawn Cortex, of never doing lower than tier 16 memory fragments. So if I'm doing a Nico mission or Betrayal in a lower tier red map, I don't do the memory fragment there, and I just do the level 83 ones, right? So whenever I go into Nexus, I also have level 83 zones that give me maximum experience, that drop T16 maps. Like every time T16 drops, that's like 17 chaos, like between 50 and 20 chaos, right? And they drop like, I don't know, every like 3 memory fragments, you'll probably find a map, right? So without the modifiers, like I don't give a fuck about like building chains, like and setting up a lot of memory modifier, zones. I don't do any of that. I don't bother with that. I just do as many reward nodes and as many bosses respawning as possible, right? That's what I do. So that's second piece of content that I do. I don't pick up fractured items. I don't care about any of other things. I just do the zones and just try to do the reward nodes and the bosses. That's the most efficient way, I think, because it saves you so much time. Like you don't have to plan much. You just use the zones, use the fragments, the memory fragments as you like, just to move through this zone, through the nexus. That's it, right? So that's second thing I do. Next thing I do is delve. Whenever I have all of the, I'm close to like the sulfide cap. Right now I'm like 27,000 sulfide, which means I should do probably delve now, right? And currently I'm delving in search of bosses. I still haven't seen a single boss. I think delve bosses and Cortex have way too low spawn rate. Like I'm just searching for them at like 250 depth, because that's where all 3 delve bosses can spawn, from 250. So I'm going to 250 and going horizontally and trying to search, but I found a very nice city here, but no bosses so far. So doing delves, and the way I do delves is I just rush through them. I just rush through the monsters to the end nodes, and I look for cities. Cities are by far the most profitable thing, because and also like I prioritize Azurite a little bit, right? To be able to have like big capacity for sulfide and to be able to upgrade everything to like maximum light radius and darkness resistance and everything, right? So that's what I do with delve, right? So that's the second, that's another piece of content. I do also temples. Temples are also great. Temple of Atzoatl, because you will get them level 83, right? If you're running constantly the Elder maps, you will get them level 83, and they will help you sustain your maps. Even if you don't get the map rooms, right? Which is the cartographer's chamber, and before that something else. Like even if you don't get it, you can get maps from a room that contains just random items, right? A room that contains chests of items. That's also great. It sometimes can spawn cartographer's stash or whatever, but also regular mobs. It's level 83 zone. It can drop tier 16 maps for you, right? So that's also another piece of content that I do, because it gives me tier 16s and just allows me to sustain them indefinitely, right? Another thing that I do is minimize trades. I don't bother trading, like even 2 chaos is like a really low amount that I don't want to trade for. Sometimes I will, but like minimum I would trade for like 5 chaos, 10 chaos, and then I put stuff into my shop for like, okay, 6 chaos, whatever. And I usually try to sell things that are more expensive, right? And if something doesn't sell, I just lower the prices, right? But I don't do that much trading. I really dislike trading much. Sometimes I will like drop a bunch of maps, turn off D&D and let people message me, and then I'll sell a bunch of things, and that's it. But I don't flip currency, I don't flip items, I don't do any of that. I don't set up whoops to snipe items, I don't craft 2 things to sell, anything like that. I don't do anything like that. I just play the game, right? And you can make so much currency just playing the game, just doing the main content of the game, mostly the things that drop me maps, which means I can run more maps, which means I generate more resources for the other content, which means I get more maps, and so on, and just compounds like that. And over time you're gonna get some lucky drops and some lucky items, but you don't really need that. Like just run maps, you'll sell maps, you'll sustain, you'll get so much currency, so many items from all of this shit that you won't need anything else, right? And usually when you do something, try to do things in bulk if you can, because it saves you time. It's all about saving time. Like you either play more or you play more efficiently, right? And if you want to play more efficiently, you have to invest in things like sextants, for example. I bought like I think I bought like 90 sextants at once. I bought 90 master cartographer sextants, because rather than just running out of maps and messaging people trying to buy maps or whatever. I found a dude that had a shit ton of sextants, and I paid him like a normal amount of chaos for them, and I just keep running them, right? So I don't need to worry about that. I can always sustain my maps because I have permanent sextants on my maps, no problem, right? I would definitely also recommend doing betrayal, because betrayal rewards are really nice. Like, especially, let me show investigation. Certain things are better than others. Like, for example, I would do, where is she? Chimera, and intervention gives sulfide scarabs, right? Intervention, like really nice scarabs, like Chimera scarabs, Rin in intervention, which is cartographer's scarabs. Those are really good, right? Like sulfide scarabs are like 50 chaos. These are like, I don't know, something between 10 and 20 chaos, right? So that's what I would do. Look up what betrayal setup is good and do that, right? So that's it. That's basically what I've been doing. That's how I've been getting my currency, and now I'm gonna be probably investing in a better weapon to match this one. This is a decent weapon, and I'm gonna try to get something even better for this slot. That's it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I hope this helped you figure out how to make more currency. See you next time.